Hello and welcome, everyone. We have arrived at week number 6 in the LCS Academy Spring 2022 split. I'm Mazel, joined by the ever lovely Kangas. I can't believe we're already at 6 weeks, my friend.
Yeah,
6 weeks.
that's more fingers than you can count on one hand. That's actually crazy. This has been swinging by at rapid speed, but it's been a fun ride, Mazel. It's been awesome having the development of these players and being able to watch their stories. I just can't believe that we're this close to proving grounds already, and we're already seeing what's going on in the amateur scene as well, because of course the open qualifiers are still going on for the amateur teams, still trying to qualify into proving grounds itself. So quick update on what's been going on there. Maryville University still making that deep run. Taco Gaming taking the win over Supernova is exciting. And some of these matches were absolutely insane. I mean, like, if you weren't watching the stream last night, there was a game where the Nexus was down to like double-digit health, one auto away, and still the game kept going. And also props to all the production, everybody on there. We even had some of our Academy folks on the production last night. So that was super fun to see.
It absolutely is. And also, shout out to Maryville for putting 2 teams in there. Not too shabby. The Secret Weapon Squad coming in clutch there, but I guess as the Saints is their name now. But very, very exciting stuff all together for the OQs for Unified. But now we got to talk about the intermingling of competition. All right, Kangas, because we got an update on the Champions Queue standings for the Academy players here and see where we're kind of matching up this week, as I do believe we got our updates last night. So
yeah, Champs Queue is super fun to follow, everybody. If you're not, make sure that you're checking out the Twitter page. First of all, it's tweeting out every stream that's going on in Champs Queue right now. That's awesome. And then also, of course, the fact that you can go to the website and then check out all the rankings of the players. So I believe that we do have the updated graphic with all the players in their position based on Academy, because we like to keep track of how people are doing in Academy. So while we wait for that, Lennon, we didn't actually catch everybody up here on why we're dressed so dapper today.
Yeah, so we don't have the graphic, so we're just going to go into this conversation, apparently. It was all ties last week, and I know this isn't technically a tie, but it worked. It's a bow tie.
It works.
And the whole squad today is going to be wearing ties for the tie day, as every team in Academy was able to scoop up a win last Friday, rather.
It was 1-1 in every single game on the last day of broadcast. It was absolutely insane. So I know, Lennon, thank you for playing along, because I think I just spoke for everybody on the broadcast when I said we'd all wear ties. So
I think that's how it happened. I mean,
I'm pretty sure that's how it happened. But we're all going to be wearing our ties, so I feel pretty good. But if you want to check out the Champions Queue update, hopefully we'll have that one for tomorrow for a graphic. But otherwise, check out the website. You can also check out the Twitter page and find all that information there. But outside of that, we got to give a happy birthday, Lennon, to everybody that had birthdays this last weekend. And it wasn't that long of a list, actually. Only one.
Just the one.
Only one.
I feel like we're at that like time where it's just one a week at this point. But it works.
But happy birthday to Malice from yesterday. Yeah. Woo. Everybody give happy birthdays in the chat. If you didn't already wish happy birthdays on Twitter or in Discords or anywhere else.
And it's on 2/22/22 was his birthday. That's kind of nuts. Just saying.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, Malice, again, happy birthday. We don't sing on broadcast, but hopefully
you don't
somebody
want
sing
that.
happy birthday.
You don't want that. I mean, we may be broadcasters, we are not singers, but we have a little bit of an update here for everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to a quick little video. Make sure you're paying attention, because we got some changes coming to the end of the season for Academy.
So, for Academy this year, there is no playoffs, and we have to wait until Proving Grounds before we can crown an actual victor. And while that may not be that long of a wait, we still wanted something for the players to be able to compete for this spring split.
In the LCS, the highest honor is the Most Valuable Player Award. But in Academy, we're about growth, development, and seeing where the future stars are going to be for the future of LCS. With this in mind, we wanted to make our MVP award a little different.
Introducing the Most Valuable Prospect Award. We didn't want to just highlight the best player in Academy. We wanted to highlight who we think is the best player to have in your organization. Someone who we believe is likely to compete for LCS titles within 2.5 years.
Our Most Valuable Prospect Award will be decided by the Academy broadcast as a panel, in a discussion where the highlights will be shared on our Twitter account @PathToLCS, along with a montage of that player's best moments in the spring split.
But the award isn't just a video. we wanted to get the trophy case for our winner started early. So we commissioned the same company that makes the trophies for the LCS to create a trophy worthy of the future that we believe this player has in store for all of us.
So make sure you're staying tuned, everyone, because we'll be sharing more details at the end of regular play. But know this, here, it was always our goal to be celebrating and cultivating future stars of the LCS here in Academy. And we know that this award embodies that through and through. It is our deep and genuine honor to be bestowing the title of Most Valuable Prospect to our winner at the end of the regular season.
Thank you, everyone who helped put together that video. But I'm so excited that we will have the Most Valued Prospect Award going through for this year. It's always so exciting to be able to start filling up that trophy case, as we said, and make sure these players feel something for their efforts.
Exactly. It's a fun twist on the MVP, right? Most valuable prospect as opposed to player. So it's not necessarily who's performing the best immediately right now. It's who do we think is going to be the best prospect for LCS teams to look at to pick up for their organization. So it's cool that we get this kind of award. And also, I haven't seen Magical's outfit today. He keeps teasing it. And if that blazer has anything to do with the outfit he's wearing today, I think we're all in for a treat.
I think so too. It's going to be a fun time every time we have Magical on.
But with that said, let's take a look at the schedule because we have games going on today. Oh, actually, before that, every time I do it every time, man. Every time I get a little too ahead on the run of show. But we wanted to highlight a fun little wholesome tweet that was out there for our community segment today for this pre-show because two coaches will be going against each other on the Rift. But outside of the Rift, actually kind of close buds.
Hey, this made me so happy. I commented on it when it went live, but just the fact to see them reunited here with a beer. Yes, both Academy coaches, both in LA. It just feels great to see these two guys together again and like be able to see them having some fun, at least outside of the competition aspect of it. But it's even funnier because they have to go against each other today. So
exactly, yeah. So CLG Academy coach Juves, Team Liquid Academy coach Spawn, two ex-Oceanic casters, now Academy coaches. Awesome to have them here and helping out our player development and also checking out a couple of drinks together at a bar. Maybe we'll have to go join them sometime.
I was gonna say I need an invite. I don't know what this is all about. But Spawn, Juves, you know where to hit us up. Go to the Academy setup. Anyways, we got to talk a little bit about coming into this week, Kangas, because we have our standings set. We have the 6th week ready to kick off, and there is a lot of movement possible. If you just look at 5 through 6, well, I guess because they're all tied at 6, but it is 10 and 12 across the board there, and that big old chunk in the middle, right where it's important for the Proving Ground standings.
Exactly. Auto-qualifying for Proving Ground saves you a lot of time. You get a lot more prep to scout and practice rather than actually performing. So that 6th place spot will be contentious, and there's a lot of teams gunning for it right now. But at the top, we do see some distance now between CLG Golden Guardians and the rest of the pack. And even Cloud9 sneaking up there, too. So it's cool that we're getting a little bit of a spread now.
Yeah, it's getting, petered out a little bit. Obviously, TSM, a lot of ground to cover on the bottom side as well as FlyQuest themselves, but that is what Academy is for. We have best of 2s every single day for the 2 days a week, and there's a lot of chance to make some of that ground back, especially. So it's very, very exciting and still very tension heavy.
Yeah, still anybody can go for it. So let's take a look at how teams will try and get into that top 6 right now, because now we are ready for the schedule. Mazel, finally, I got the correct odds here. So let's see what we got going on. This is your stream. This is twitch.tv/academy.
So we got CLG taking on TL Academy. Obviously, we were just talking a little bit about that matchup with the head coaches going out. Then we have Cloud9 Academy taking on TSM Academy. A little bit of a kiltered matchup there. 100 Thieves Academy taking on Immortals Progressive Academy in our final game of the day.
That's a really fun schedule. We always joke about, who's got the better schedule. I think that you got some bangers on there. So let's take a look at what I'm working with here. Twitch.tv/FaceItTV. If you don't already, make sure you got both streams pulled up. If you got 2 monitors or even just one, hey, you got 2 tabs on that browser. So support both streams. It supports all of Academy. And then you can get the confusion of hearing both at the same time, or just mute whichever one you want to not be watching at that time. Evil Geniuses versus Golden Guardians versus FlyQuest. Long-winded way to say that this is what we got over there. Very excited for that first match in particular. There we go. We did it.
You made it through.
I made it through.
If you want to make it through and follow all of the Academy shenanigans and Kangas missing his run of show calls, go to Path to LCS on Twitter, because that's where you can find all this. You can see pictures of Kangas messing things up. You can see pictures of me messing things up. You can see pictures of players doing amazing things, not messing things up. And you can just follow
in the ever-running war between me and our social media guy. I think I'm losing right now. I'm pretty sure he took a big lead last week. So yeah, go follow the account. But for now, I'm gonna have to try and find a way to redeem myself.
I don't know if that's gonna be possible. But Kangas, it is time. It is time to set us up and get us going for both streams today. So let's make sure we got our fit check on point. We're looking pretty dapper here.
Yeah, how's my tie? How's my not looking?
I just want to make
sure.
Is it good? Does it go like this? Or does it go like, is it up and down? Okay.
Split the streams.
Okay,
split the streams.
Guys,
we got to get ready.
Go
we got to get ready
watch
real
both
quick.
streams and follow at Path to LCS. Go do it right now.
Watch them both.
On something growing up, I dreamed just nothing. Ooh, what are you? People talk loud, I get what they're telling me. I fucked up, I didn't care of it. Ooh, what are you? Hey, I gotta say, something's going wrong.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here for some Academy action today. I'm ready to kick us off in our very, very long day. I'm Mazel, joined by Joshi and Magical. I love the outfit, Magical. You're looking spontaneous as ever. I think Joshi might be frozen. He looks very,
He's just
very
enamored with you. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've got something like on my
blame
mic, or like, is there? Can I like help you?
No. It's
can I
you.
help
it's
you,
you.
Joshi?
You're just
Okay.
beautiful, and I'm always enamored with you as well.
I think we're back.
Welcome
Hello.
back, Joshi. And we are getting ourselves ready for Team Liquid Academy taking on CLG Academy. I was going to say Counter Logic Gaming Academy. That's too much of a mouthful, I feel like, for this one. But it is a very fun matchup. We had the pre-show talk, you know, the coaches getting a little friendly, but it ain't friendly on the Rift.
Oh, no.
All right? It ain't friendly on the Rift.
Not really friendly
Not
at
that
all.
attitude.
And it definitely has been something that CLG has been historically winning. We keep talking about when Team Liquid are going to be returning to form, and they have had a really, really tough couple of series and ever since Ayla came back. But unfortunately for Team Liquid, Ayla is not going to be in, and we are going to be going back to the wonder kid of Rhino, who's hopefully going to be able to take down CLG.
It's really interesting. Rhino, a little bit of a revolving door at this point, you know, just trying to get his opportunities when he can. I can appreciate that as much as anybody. We do still have Ayla on there. He will be playing LCS as Core JJ has to take care of a personal matter this week, and it will be Rhino coming in as true as ever. Very familiar with the Team Liquid Academy raw scene, roster, everything along those lines. But on the other side, we have CLG Academy, the top team in the standings, the gold standard of Academy right now, which is something I feel like I would never be able to say before this split. But this roster has been performing on all cylinders Dokla,
Yeah.
Rosethorn, Triple, Prismal, and Breezy.
I mean, honestly, it's really impressive to see this team because a lot of the elements, there's players we've seen before. Dokla, Triple, we've seen them many times. Rosethorn from last year, Prismal, and Breezy as well. But each of them in the past had done well, but not amazing. This year really feels like all of their year. They are all playing so
Yeah.
well from top to bottom.
Yeah. But I do want to reel back just a little bit, right? CLG has had a fantastic first half of the split, but so far in the second round robin, they haven't been performing up to the admittedly very high expectations we've set for them. And it's one of those things where we have to pay a little bit of attention to, will they be able to continue the dominance they had in the first half? Or is it going to be a thing where all the other teams are starting to catch up? And some of the early pathing that Rosethorn has had, people are starting to figure out a little bit. And that's where we start to look at the rest of the team, try and figure out who's going to be the person to step up.
And, Rhino may be coming in for Ayla. The main roster only got to play for the 1 week so far for Team Liquid Academy. But in all rights, this is still a big step for CLG Academy, right? If they can take out Team Liquid, one of the biggest teams last year, right? Not too shabby. And they may be different, but that's still a lot to be said. And it's a lot towards that solidification of their season, at least for CLG Academy. But I want to dive in a little bit more about Breezy here, because Breezy. I got to talk to him a little while back, and it was very interesting to get his kind of mindset, but especially the mindset that seems to be rampant around CLG.
Yeah. I mean,
I thought it was really cool. It was very positive, and it was very motivated. And I see Dokla a lot of times, with the aggressive stances and the things that he says, but you get a lot of that from CLG. Maybe it's just because they're winning.
Oh, that definitely helps. When you start to win, you start to feel really good about yourself. And I never knew Dokla as much of a trash talker before this year. We're starting to see quite a bit more of it. But one of the things that I've been really impressed about with Breezy, to bring it back, is the fact that he is one of these players who roams so well with his jungler, and he tends to spend a lot of time in the opposing jungle, moving around with their jungler Rosethorn to create a lot of pressure and make sure that they're going to have an opportunity to be aggressive and have all these strong early games.
Yeah.
Well, I also like how he plays around top side too. He very much has the utmost faith in Prismal. He completely bails on him so many games. Goes top lane to make sure he can facilitate Dokla, who's usually doing well in lane on his own, but then he starts smashing because he gets that little bit of attention from his support, and it gives them so much room to really exploit the entirety of these side lanes.
Exactly, and I think that going into this matchup specifically, that's going to be really important. But I want to turn the table over to Rhino specifically and what he brings to the table, right? Because the beginning of the day, our matchup that we wanted to talk about was Ayla versus Breezy. There's no more Ayla. So now we got to focus on Rhino, who has had a lot of track record with Team Liquid Academy, and not too bad of a track record itself.
Yeah.
Well, I also even want to just really quickly, before I give it to Josh to get the big brain stuff, and I kind of applaud Rhino with how he's really grown in just this. Because you look at how the first week wasn't really the most spectacular, same with the second week. You can see over the weeks that he was really feeling more comfortable with Team Liquid. And sure, Ayla stepping back in, and it made it so that we don't get to see him now. But he's still someone who I have my eyes on for the future. And how much he's been able to grow just in this year, I have a lot of faith for him when it comes to future split.
And we're starting to see that he has been taking a bigger role in the team, right? There's not a lot of people who have been playing set support this split, but Rhino has been one of them, and it's been one of the biggest champions that he's had some success on. His ability to control these fights with a lot of crowd control and a ton of tankiness allows him to be more aggressive on a non-traditional engage support than a lot of other people, just because he's able to not only put out the crowd control, but he's also able to put out the deeps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where, the variations of support right now is really interesting to me. And I wonder if we do get to see a little bit more of that playmaking support we've been seeing rise up. I mean, the Luxes, the things along those lines, like, it's so crazy. I don't know if we'll actually get to see that here.
I mean, Breezy might. He did it last week.
Yeah, I was going to say, Breezy is the one I'm definitely leaning to. Rhino, more of those engagers, more of that frontline targeting. But for me, it's the breakdown of how both these teams want to approach this game style and the gameplay for this one. Because CLG have been ruthless. When they get a lead, they don't care what team you are or who you are. They go for it, and they will take you out in 25 minutes. And so for Team Liquid Academy, who have had some rough times, especially around macro play, how do you kind of tackle that? How do you find that aggression to kind of fight against it? Because if you don't go down swinging against CLG, why'd you even come to the fight?
Well, we can go
Well,
ahead.
I think here actually
Okay,
go,
okay,
Josh.
okay.
I want to hear your thoughts before I go into my own
I
thing.
think the first thing is you throw CLG off a little bit. We saw this come out from TSM last week in a very surprising draw where they were able to pick it up, and they did it by playing the Enchanter's top. And with the Renekton that they had picked for
Viper,
themselves,
oh
CLG
goodness.
weren't really able to build enough of an advantage to overcome the fact that their opponents were playing on such a low amount of gold. And just like, again, I'm going to use a chess analogy. When you start going out and you go into places that your opponents haven't prepped for, you're going to just have a little bit of an advantage because you understand your style a little bit more than they do. Whereas if CLG suddenly have to adapt, we've praised their ability to adapt some of their early game plans, but if you throw a huge curveball at them, it can really throw them off kilter.
Yeah, I actually agree with you because I was going to even mention IMT, the fact that they were able to get a win on them in their second game on the first day, where Concept still played on Window, one of his comfort champs, but they also got Arrow and Joey into the Caitlyn Lux, this powerful laning duo, where they got a lot of advantages over CLG, plus they didn't have to worry about Dokla getting ahead. The Renekton wasn't really able to do enough Window in lane, so I agree. I think that Team Liquid, if they're going to approach this game, they have to approach it with the mindset that if they can somehow get these drafts where they have strong lanes and don't really have to give over those advantages to CLG right out of the gates, they have a good step to try to see if they can take the series.
And I guess that's where my eyes for Team Liquid Academy specifically focus over to Armeo. The general, it feels like, right? The first couple weeks we were seeing how adamantly his controlling of the macro was working out for Team Liquid Academy. And I got to speak with him in an interview, and it was a lot of that going on, right? Like he feels like he was able to lead a lot and find a lot of the decisions in the mid game, late game, things along those lines. But it's going to be down to Armeo finding those unique paths that Rosethorn likes to take and punishing those and being the facilitator for these solo lanes and for these laners that you have on Team Liquid Academy.
And Armeo is one of those junglers who I've always seen as a controlled jungler, where he tries to make sure that he can read paths of his opponents, gain the upper hand by purely getting vision on them, making sure that he's one step ahead or always there to react.
Yeah.
But there's also an important thing, right? You say that he's always there to react, but he's one of these junglers that I typically think of as really coming alive during the mid and late game as a huge facilitator for his team. And if you're interested in learning more on Armeo, Tim7 Houston just put out an article on Armeo. It was either last night or earlier this morning, where he's able to do a long form interview with him. So make sure you go check that
so
out
good.
on Oracle's Elixir to learn more about him. But he's constantly trying to get back, and I think if he can make himself a bit more well-rounded and not just be a reactive jungler, but also a proactive one, that can really be a key for Team Liquid to actually come into this. And that would require him to go for something that he hasn't been doing quite as much. I think the last time I saw a really early gank path come through it was last year during Proving Grounds, where he played Trundle on the blue side. He started his red buff, ran all the way top lane without doing a single camp in order to gank from behind the tri-brush and get first blood. But we call that out because it's notable. He doesn't normally do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's always like looking at those kinds of situations and saying, is it recreatable? Can you continue to do things like that? And so far, it booms and busts, I feel like, but there's still a lot of positives when you look at the double-edged sword of taking risks and things along those lines. We do have a technical issue with one of the players from Team Liquid Academy, so we'll be getting into the draft and champ select as soon as possible, but I want to get your guys' feels on the meta right now in Academy and kind of talk a little bit more about what we could be seeing from both these teams. And especially, I want to start off with the jungle meta, Joshi, because we've been seeing a lot of facilitators for Armeo. Do we still see that here? Does the J4 get banned away from him? Things along those lines.
I have to imagine if they're going to be targeting any bans at Armeo, it's going to be continuing to be these bruiser style junglers that Armeo has been so good on and has primarily played throughout the season, right? He hasn't necessarily been the kind of player who's going to be playing things like the Hecarim, but we do have to note that last week he actually brought out the Udyr a little bit more, right? Leaning a little bit more into the Malice style, into the farming jungler, and just saying, hey, I don't need to do anything early on. I'm going to force you to make some early plays. And while it had some good early results up against Dignitas's XU, it didn't necessarily translate into the rest of the map going all that well.
Oh, I didn't know if you have any thoughts to piggyback on that, Magical, but it's just interesting to always see that. I personally want to see a world where Rosethorn gets the spicy picks. I just don't know if against our
What is
Mayo,
spicy?
that's the best idea. Like the Nidalee, things like that. Like I would like to see
not
the
Rek'Sai?
aggression, the assassins, the bruisers, those things. But against our Mayo, we've already kind of highlighted it. Like you can't give away control to this guy because he does know how the map works pretty darn well, and you just have to be very careful of that slippery slope in the jungle. But I also feel like it goes both ways.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities for Rosethorn to go for a lot of these more unique picks, a lot of these really early ganking junglers, and he is one of these few people who has been willing to play things like the Rek'Sai. Now, the Rek'Sai creates a big burden on CLG, right? The champion does not scale particularly well. Even with the rise of bruiser items like Death Stance and Maw of Melordius, which I've been saying, basically invalidate any kind of double magic damage compositions, you still have to respect the early game. And now you have a little bit more scaling into the game in order to, reduce some of the burden that CLG would normally have with picking this really heavy early ganking jungler.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I want to move that conversation because jungler being super important in this one. We've already talked a little bit about supports in the bot lane, obviously very important in this one itself, Prismal versus Yon. But in all actuality, this mid lane is really interesting, man. I think
it is.
that, we talk about the jungle. We also see how important the mid jungle duo is right now in the meta in totality, but this matchup in specific, I feel like it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath in that mid lane if we get what we want.
I mean, I'm really curious to see what the draft's going to be like because when you look at Triple, and he's been playing a ton of Ahri. He's been playing a lot of Ahri. Of course, he has more of a capability to play more than just that, right? But it's more interesting to see how he's going to play against Harry, who has been playing similar picks to him. He's got really similar champions that even drafting. He's got Azari. They've both been sharing the Rise. We've got LeBlanc coming back into the meta too. Both of them are really proficient on that champion. So I'm really curious to see how that approach is going to be for each of these sides, whether or not we're going to see Team Liquid go for something that they've done in the past where they try to utilize the different flex picks that they have for both mid and top.
Well, I hear that we are ready to find out, Magical. So we're going to go ahead and send you guys on your way. Finally, we got our first game of the day. So take it away, fellas.
Bye, Leonard.
Well, let's find out. I got my magnifying glass here so we can search for some clues here in our Champion Select and get ready for our first game. It is week 6 so far into the season, nearly at its conclusion so we can get into the Proving Grounds, but we still got more. We got more games before then. Why don't we dive into the Champion Select, Josh, and see what's going to take place?
And before Twitch chat says anything, I would like to personally apologize because, as we all know, it's always the casters who are trying to get the game to start a little bit later. We actually don't
We just like
League of
to talk
Legends.
a
We
lot.
just really like hearing our own voices, and hopefully you did as well. But now we got the main show finally coming out, and interestingly enough, Yasuo ban coming through for CLG. I'm shocked is honestly the best way to put that. I don't think we've really seen a whole lot of Yasuo come out from Team Liquid whatsoever, but the other thing we have to pay attention to is now that we are on 12-4, Zeri has taken a big nerf, and while this champion still invalidates a lot of compositions all on its own, it's not something that you are required to ban anymore, and that means it's getting through, and Dokla is going to be able to pick up his Gwen.
The Gwen is the big one, though. I'm glad you talked about Zeri. That's why we don't see the ban, but the Gwen getting through is kind of what I have my eyes on. And even with the Zeri bans, we get an early Zeri lock. And I did hear from a couple players, I've talked to them about this champion and what their opinions are with the nerfs. They all feel that this wasn't enough to actually stop her because that's how overtuned she was on release. But it's interesting to see the priority. That we have that Gwen taken by Dokla. It has the flexibility still to go into the jungle, but also Caitlyn Lux.
Yeah.
There it is, locked in for Prismal and Breezy.
That's really surprising to me, right? The first thing that pops out is we are so used to seeing Jinx being our first pick on blue side every single game. Champion is absolutely cracked. It has something like a 60% win rate globally in professional play, and it's not being played right now. We have Zeri for Yon and Caitlyn coming out for Prismal, which means that we get to have a different bottom lane than Jinx Aphelios. Magical. Are you not excited? I know you're the one who's been talking about Victor Corky this whole season.
Hold on.
Holding.
You're assuming Zeri is going bot lane. Don't assume that.
I am assuming.
Zeri, the one time we've actually seen it in Academy was played by Darshan top lane.
Okay, that's fair.
This is not necessarily guaranteed to go into the bot lane. It can still be that Jinx, and this is what I was talking about before. Team Liquid, the advantages they can get in draft are these flex picks. Moving things around and trying to catch CLG off guard. You had highlighted that amazingly, Josh. Just the fact that CLG, a good way to kind of put them behind is by having things that they're not as practiced against.
Yeah. And that could be an option, right? Bradley coming in from the mid lane previously is still adjusting to the top lane. The biggest thing that we still need to see is greater understanding of matchups. But if you put Dokkan in a position where he also doesn't know the matchup, you kind of even the playing field in that regard. So as we move into the second half of the draft, it is true. There's a lot of variation potentially coming through. This Tahm Kench can go top lane, although it has received some significant nerfs to their solo laning ability. Zeri can go top lane, Zeri can go mid lane. There's a lot of opportunities for both teams to continue adjusting, and I really like the fact that Team Liquid are very quickly moving to the style of a new patch in ways that it doesn't feel like CLG have immediately followed.
Not yet, at least. The thing is, we look at the champions that they have drafted, and these are champions that really didn't get hit that much in 12. They're still incredibly strong. Gwen is one of these champions I feel like needs hard nerfs because how powerful she is. And it nearly requires to be permanently banned, kind of like how Zeri has been. Because we've seen players like Dokla, Tony, Top, Eclipse, how well they can play on this champion and eventually what she can do in the later stages of any game.
Yeah, the crazy ability to scale match with a fantastic level 1 means that Gwen is really, really nuts. But we're also noticing that Rosethorn currently still sticking on the Ghost and Dokkan on the Flash, which is implying to me something that we haven't touched on yet. Is Gwen more likely to go into the jungle than it was previously? And now we see those summoner spells switched up. They was all a bait. Nah, that looks like something where this is very, very typical of earlier in the season, right? When you just get the Gwen and the Xin Zhao and you have the double invulnerable front line, and it makes it very, very difficult for any ranged champions to interact. And that does mean that Jan might have some difficulty actually doing some damage. He can kite very well, but if he can't hit, it doesn't really matter.
Well, it will be dependent as well what they want to round out the composition for on the side of Team Liquid. We have a lot of range and a lot of poke that CLG have already drafted for themselves. The Caitlyn, Lux, Corki combination can really chunk at these members of Team Liquid who aren't going to have the most range outside of having that Jace they've now drafted for what I'm assuming Bradley.
Yeah. I have to imagine it's going to be going towards the top lane, and in fact, it is going to be the Zeri going into the bottom lane, like I assumed in the first place.
Hey, I'm just saying that you couldn't assume that because the one time we saw it, it was not bot lane.
Fair, fair. But the thing that I really like about CLG's composition is what I tend to call an alpha strike, right? You land one ability, in this case, it's the light binding coming out from Lux, and suddenly you're able to blow up a single person because you're hitting them with Caitlyn Q, the rest of Lux's combo, and Corki rockets, which are absolutely nuts. But the thing that I'm a little bit worried about CLG's composition is it is a little bit difficult from the wheelhouse that we've been seeing from them so far this season. We've been praising their early games. We've been saying that they are absolutely nuts in their ability to build leads. But I got some news for you, Magical. Corki doesn't do anything in the first couple of levels, right? You got a decent level 1 when you turn on E, you get your first strike, and you just point your Gatling gun in the right direction. But after that, you know, levels 2 through 5, doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. And it means that we're going to be seeing Harry have a whole lot of early control in this game.
And I'm even glad that we're seeing Harry play at this LeBlanc that I had touched on really briefly, because this is a champion we have seen him dominate on in past seasons. This is something that was drawing a lot of bans back in 2021 because how proficient he was on the champion. People have kind of forgotten about that from Harry, with Team Liquid doing well, but not as well as you'd expect going into the season from last year.
And Harry, one of the players that we hadn't spent a whole lot of time talking about today, I do want to touch on him a little bit. He has been one of the most dominant early game mid laners, and a conversation we're going to be having throughout the course of the day, Magical, is how do mid laners actually stand out? Because we haven't been seeing a whole lot of mid laners really draw eyes to them. They're not necessarily pulling a whole lot of attention their way. Harry has had a fantastic series of early games. He's consistently coming out 10 CS ahead in lane, but he's not necessarily having a whole lot of impact after that. And on a character like LeBlanc, your impact usually doesn't come from the laning phase. It comes from your ability to navigate fights later on and find all these picks. And he has the tools to do that, and I want to see him use it to stand out.
Here we are. We're all loaded up onto the Rift for our first game. Day 1 of week 6. line of scrimmage for each team. Even having Rhino recall after placing down a ward so we could switch out immediately to that sweeper.
Yeah. Another thing we didn't talk about, Magical, he's not playing the set, right? He is going to be playing the Tahm Kench, which provides a lot of safety to Jan, right? He's already an incredible kiter, but if he just has the one threat of getting blown up by something like the Light Binding, the Tahm Kench basically is going to save his life during all of these team fights. So, as they start moving down together, we'll see how effectively Rhino is able to play this Tahm Kench and create enough space to make sure that the bigger carries and all the damage threats from Team Liquid are going to be able to play the game.
But I look at this draft from CLG, and even if Rhino is able to kind of help out his ADCs in the later stages of the game, CLG have drafted a bot lane where Breezy can kind of ditch Prismal at some point. This is something we had talked about earlier, that he likes to ditch Prismal. He has so much confidence in his ADC and play around the top side of the map.
Yeah, but this is definitely a lane where he's not necessarily going to be doing that. Breezy, definitely one of our stronger supports so far this year, and he's going to be creating a lot of pressure, but as double skill shots end up going wide, there's an opportunity to get a lot of damage returned down on Prismal. You got to be landing those skill shots if you want to actually be abusing the fact that Zeri is relatively short-ranged if, if you're just standing and delivering.
Especially against something like Caitlyn and Lux.
Oh,
you do need to
Dokla.
land in those skill shots, but now Dokla in a little bit of trouble. Bradley is playing aggressively, but that is still something you have to fear. It's Ghost popped by Dokla, looking for the chase down onto Bradley. It might have overextended just a little bit, flash away from the snip.
Okay, Bradley getting a little bit too big for his britches, right? This is still Dokla. This is still our most dominant top laner in the league for CLG. And the fact that Dokla levels up in the middle of that trade was huge. I don't think Bradley was expecting that to happen. And it's a very small thing they have to pay attention to a lot more in the top lane than in the mid lane. We are still seeing why Dokla is saying there aren't a whole lot of top laners that he fears in Academy except for Darshan.
And so now Bradley, an early TP back into lane, only having 2 long swords. Not necessarily the best back. You'd like to be able to recall, get a serrated Dirk at least if you want to try to bully around Gwen in the early stages of the game when she tends not to be exactly the most powerful champion. It's not until she hits level 6 and gets that Rift Maker later on we see those power spikes.
Yeah, okay. Junglers finding each other. Armeo, just as you were talking about earlier, making sure that he's going to be a bit more reactive and prevent any ganks from coming through. And Rosethorn, in the early game, hasn't yet had an impact. Instead, just going for a full clear, which is atypical, shall we say. Not something that he usually does, but not something that he is averse to. The big question is going to be then, where is CLG going to find their early advantage? They got the flash coming up from Bradley, so there's a target painted top lane, but you can also play really aggressive down here, assuming Breezy's able to land some bindings.
I feel like you have to, because you got double scuttled by Armeo. He got both of those objectives, the neutrals, to have a little bit of a lead over Rosethorn. And you talked about this, that a lot of junglers kind of figured out the pathing of Rosethorn. You can kind of see that here just in these early few minutes.
Yeah, look how much vision, though. I don't know if they figured him out so much as just say, hey, we are just not going to get ganked. There are 6 wards. Well, okay, 4 plus the 2 Scuttle Crabs that were placed down by Team Liquid in order to make sure that, oh, they have space.
Wow, Harry. Whoa. That was an aggressive play.
That was aggressive, but I'm not quite sure what it was, right? He doesn't have Ignite. I don't think the damage was ever going to be there, and so he just gives over his flash for triple splash in response.
Maybe that's what it's worth, because it is still LeBlanc. LeBlanc is slippery. She doesn't really need flash.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it does mean that you have to be much more careful with your distortions, and if you ever use them for a damage trade, you need to have a pretty good idea of where Rosethorn is. Otherwise, it becomes very, very dangerous, because it is on a long cooldown early on in the game. But both of them coming back into the lane, and we are seeing that Harry is building that small CS advantage currently, just as we were saying he has typically done. But the question is, now that we are at level 5 and getting towards level 6, Triple is going to get access to his ultimate very soon.
And once Triple has that, that's when the wave clear starts to come through for Corki. Pulling back and making sure to deny Harry that ability to roam around the map with Armeo, to make these plays in these side lanes, especially when we look at the bot lane. There's so much power that Prismal and Breezy have been able to get over Yawn and Rhino, but right now, gotta kind of look at what's happening, because Rhino tried to roam here, but it was Breezy in the wings, already answering that. The flash away from Rhino to survive this entire time.
Whoa.
But now they've got the kill. Somehow they turned it onto Rosethorn. It nearly looked like they were going to be able to get that. Now they can jump onto Triple for 2 kills, gifting one to Hayri.
And there you go, punishing the fact that Triple doesn't have his flash. We were looking at all the strong early games that CLG had. This looked like a very set play coming through for them where they were creating space and abusing the fact that they were expecting Tom Kench or Armeo to potentially come mid and try and find a kill onto Triple. But with so many people around, once Lux throws out the little bit of poke, there's not a whole lot left. And as you see, they instantly turn on to Rhino trying to pick up the support because there's no mobility on this character. But once the flash comes through, they find that they are just overextended. Armeo coming through with another counter gank, just like we were saying.
We got to get back to live, though, because Dokla, he finds Hayri up in his lane. He was able to dodge away from some of the skill shots, even using the needlework to get a little bit of a trade. He's going back in 1v3. He's got so much damage, but Bradley has no mana. He actually can fight this back. Dokla, big Dokes dominating this top lane. No need for Breezy.
Yo, Dokla is so good, man. He just goes in. Harry is still there, and Dokla's like, I think I can do this. And he's right. He just finds a very, very easy kill coming through there because he has access to the ultimate. Bradley has no mana, and Harry with no cooldowns doesn't present a threat. So his ability to not only say, I think I can kill this guy, but also they can't kill me back is really something that has been setting Dokla apart. His threat evaluation as well as his target selection, impeccable.
This is just incredible to see from Dokla. As a player that we've seen in the past, we've seen how powerful this player can be, but he really seems like he's been able to turn it up to a whole other level. To really be able to get this power over every top laner in Academy.
Lots of damage. Young goes in.
Okay, but it just gets the flash out of Breezy. I would have been really surprised had that actually mounted any kill. I know there's a lot going on, but I was just kind of ignoring it, waiting it out, since everyone was pretty healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is pretty healthy, too. Yeah. Even if Yon uses his ult, it's like, okay, you're just getting flashes.
Yeah, and remember, the original crazy Zeri Twitter clip was Yon. Right? When he was just running around at a million miles an hour and just like, what is this champ? I think it got like 1 million impressions pretty easily. But it's just the absolute crazy stuff. This guy was one of the early adopters of this champion. We'll see how effectively he's able to play it on 12-4 when, you know, there are mixed opinions on how strong this champion really is, whether it should go crit, whether it should go Triforce. Looks like Yon's still going with the Trinity Force for now. See how well that actually does. But I want to return our conversation a little bit to Dokla, since he's one of these guys that I feel like we underestimated early on in the season. I definitely did. I wasn't expecting Dokla to be the undisputedly best top laner in the Academy League. I was expecting him to look a lot like he did in summer of 2021, where he subbed in for Team Liquid in Proving Grounds, and he looked okay. Right? But he wasn't necessarily able to build leads even against players like Gamsu, who were also on the other.
That's true. And now we really are seeing him live up to the moniker of Big Dope. That's why we got to keep saying that. Plus, in this game, we had talked about Breezy roaming up to the top lane a lot and trying to help out Dokla. He hasn't even needed it. He was able to 1v2 Bradley and Hayri, getting the kill over Bradley. And even early on at level, what was it, 2, where he barely got level 2 to fight back against Bradley and force out the flash. This is showing you that power. This player can really lord over everybody.
Yeah. Instead of Breezy walking around with Rosethorn, it's Rhino walking around with Armeo. They take away another camp, and we haven't even talked about it yet, but Armeo, with his counter ganks, has been finding a lot of early leads, right? Notice the fact that he is up a significant amount of CS. He's got most of the items towards the Trinity Force, and Harry's still looking for Triple.
Try to get another flash since that's back up for Triple. But kind of going back, but it's like we keep rewinding the clock to talk about conversations we've already had. Looking at how Armeo has played this game, this is why I call him a control jungler. He's gotten a lot of control over Rosethorn, and this has been the issue we've seen for Rosethorn in the second part of the round robin. As a lot of people have figured out his pathing. You can see this from Armeo. He's gotten all of the Scuttle Crabs in this game.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy stuff coming through for Armeo. And I think one of the cool things about the way that new junglers have been adjusting things in the league is their focus on, you don't need to make all these early game plays, right? The Xin Zhao, the Lee Sin, they are very good at making early game interactions, but if they don't go your way, you're oftentimes just going to struggle up against teams that are playing for a little bit of a longer style of game. And Team Liquid, they're going to be playing a longer style. Jace is a scaling champion these days. Viego scales very well. LeBlanc becomes really scary later in the game. And of course, Yon on this Zeri, the early game was always okay, but it was the mid to late game when you become unkillable because you have so much HP and you can't lock this champion down, means that Team Liquid have a lot of scaling elements.
Well, Bradley went in, was able to get a lot of damage on Dokla, but missing that empowered Shock Blast means that with Armeo behind him, they don't go any further. It's interesting to see a lot of this early game because normally it is CLG who get control in the very beginning of every single game that we've seen in Academy. Only a few games they haven't been able to have that massive lead that they've dominated every single lane with. But here, we're seeing that nearly all of the lanes except for Dokla are favoring that of Team Liquid. They're doing a good job of making sure they're getting Armeo ahead. Harry 1-0-1 on this LeBlanc bot lane. Gone, he might not have a kill to his name, but he's got a good CS lead over the Caitlyn Lux lane, which is normally considered an incredibly powerful lane. Yeah, and now it's going to be something contesting around this dragon with the package from Triple using that. But it's going to be Smite secured by Armeo. A little bit of a discoordination coming in from the side of CLG, giving over 2 dragons now to Team Liquid.
2 dragons to Team Liquid against the early game powerhouse that we know CLG to be is really, really worrying for CLG right now. But luckily, they still have some scaling elements of their own. They have incredible poke. They have incredible ability to pick people later on. And CLG, we have to see if they actually have this style in their back pocket because it's not something that we've been seeing just quite thus far. And Rosethorn, he's not necessarily been the most impressive later on in the game. He hasn't necessarily been able to come back and play from behind nearly as well as he has been able to play from ahead.
Yeah, and he's still holding on to that Rift Herald he was able to get quite some time ago. It's about to expire. He needs to pop that in some lane, and it looks like his pathing up towards the top lane, the one lane that really has control this game being Dokla.
Well, if they can get Dokla far enough ahead, he can absolutely carry this game. And Rocket's currently trying to find where Harry is. And CLG, with this Rift Herald here, I don't know if they actually get a whole lot out of this, right? Dokla moving forward, he is going to make sure that it crashes, but he's going to take a lot of damage in return. Rosethorn does have to commit his time up here as well, but this is time that he's not farming, and the CS lead that we were talking about in the jungle has only grown.
Bit of a fight in mid lane. Chain's connected onto Triple.
Doesn't even crash.
But look at that. No, Armeo showed up. He walked their path towards the top lane, and with this massive lead, Armeo, not only has he been out farming Rosethorn, but he's also been out pathing. This is what I talked about. It's both being a step ahead and in the perfect position to always react to what his opponent jungler has done. Rosethorn hasn't been able to really accomplish that because Armeo is usually right there on his tail.
It's great stuff coming through, and this is the wrinkles that we were always talking about. You're trying to put your opponents in an uncomfortable position, and it feels like CLG are very uncomfortable right now. They're down more than I think they've ever been this entire season. And it's not even that much of a deficit, right? They're just so unused to being behind in these kind of games.
Yeah.
So Team Liquid now, they have Harry who's starting to come online, and we said that typically, that we just got past the 14-minute mark. When the 14-minute mark actually crossed, I'm pretty sure he was up about 10 CS, which is very typical for Harry. But now is when he needs to prove himself. Now is when we're asking for him to start moving around the map and having the big impact that he had last year in order to actually push them across the finish line.
We're also not really seeing Breezy be able to leave this bot lane too well. That's, I think, something that's kind of got Rosethorn in this position where he's not really sure what he can accomplish. He's getting outmatched by Armeo, but he's also not getting support from his support that he has been throughout this entirety of this spring split. Where normally he can fall back, say, all right, Breezy's going to be behind me, we could always turn this around. Breezy's been forced in the spot lane. This Zeri pick, while I expected to get bullied more by a Caitlyn Lux, hasn't really been that put behind, and in fact has been able to get the shove back onto them, keeping Breezy pinned.
It definitely feels like I like the chess reference, but I like the fact that Yon is currently having such great success on this champion. Again, it's not supposed to be this strong early game, but Team Liquid, I mean, I feel like this is very telegraphed, but Prismal falls for it anyway.
Nice knockup comes in from Rhino to easily pick up that kill. Pretty much, like you said, telegraphed, but well played nonetheless.
Yeah, great stuff from Rhino, making sure that he puts the W a little bit behind where Prismal is standing, and Prismal thinks he can get out of it with a 90 caliber net, just a little bit too slow, and that's all you need in order to find enough of an advantage. But Armeo, once again, stifling Rosethorn on the opposite side of the map. Rosethorn can get nothing done. He needs Dokla to come down and make sure that he's strong enough.
He's trying his damnedest to get another neutral objective. The second one of the game for his team. This time, they will be able to get it because, as you talked about, Josh, Dokla just walked down towards this jungle, says, all right, I'll help you out. Breezy also in the area, a little bit ahead of schedule from Rhino to make sure they get something. They're still behind. They're still down 3,000 gold at 16 minutes into this game. And looking over to Team Liquid and how they're going to really now move around the map, it almost feels like they just can play reactionary. They can always see what CLG are trying to do and be right there because you have things like Tom Kench, you have things like Viego that can react really well to their opposition.
So Team Liquid, now as they are trying to react, they're also trying to proactivity, as they, there he goes. That's it. We talked about that earlier. Just the ability to get out of any of these bindings. But they are also moving. Team Liquid are opting to say that we want to put ourselves on Soul Point. They already have 2 dragons to their name. They want to make sure they can get this third one, get the Infernal Dragon, so they are 1 away. But CLG, they're going to be trying to make a gold trade because they know they have Porky on their team. They have Caitlyn on their team. They have a lot of powerful range tools that are just not online yet. But if they get a little bit more gold, if they can drag the game out a little bit more and say when the next dragon, when the 4th dragon actually spawns, we're going to be strong enough to fight you then, that is a way for CLG to come back. And I like the fact that they are adapting their game plan effectively. They just need to find a little bit more because, as we already touched on, Armeo is so far ahead. Oh, no.
Oh, nice cancel. And here comes the TP. Flashed away by Rosethorn for Dokla. He is going to be the target. They're looking to see if they can chase him down. Instead, they have to back out. It's a ghost popped. Hard to keep up with Gwen.
Very, very difficult. So Gwen does get away, and the trade goes through cleanly on both sides. Teleport is expended for a couple of defensive summoner spells coming out from CLG. And the ref returns to normalcy. Magical, with no objectives to fight for a couple of minutes. The only thing that might happen, other than farming for people across the map, is Team Liquid are going to try and at least return some of the damage to the structures and open up the map of CLG a little bit more. But interestingly enough, I guess not super interestingly, objective bounties spawning in just a second.
I like how you're like, interesting. Wait, not that interesting.
I thought about it a little bit harder, and I was like, oh wait, no, that should definitely be happening right about now. But it is the lighter version of the objective bounties coming in. It's not the super big ones that you oftentimes see, because the dragons coming through are going to be really heavily weighted. But CLG, I mean, the fact that they're behind, they are not super far behind. They are just in a position where it is uncomfortable, but not clearly lost.
Yeah, that is true. They definitely have certain places they can play around. This is why we've been highlighting Dokla. He got 2 turrets worth of gold, even if he shared some of it with his teammates. Got that Rift Maker, the power spikes for Gwen. Looking towards that Cosmic Drive as the second item as well. If you can pull Dokla into some of these fights, even if the rest of your team is kind of far behind, you have that powerful tool to be able to run into the backline with the low range that Team Liquid has.
Map continues to open up for CLG. As another turret goes down, they're going to be getting the top lane structure as well. And even though they don't have objective bounties, that is still a lot of gold that Team Liquid are picking up. And this is looking a little bit more like the Team Liquid from last year that I kind of remember, right? Where they were very, very controlled. They played a slower playstyle, and they just were able to create pressure in multiple lanes at the same time and grab structures and slowly open up the map and kind of strangle out the other team. That's just exactly what we were seeing. And so I feel like something must have changed. I don't know if it was Armeo just like coming back and being like, all right, guys, we've been struggling a little bit. It's time for me to carry, right? I need to be the general and the major shot caller. Or maybe just bringing Ayla back and reinvigorated these players for a little bit, because even with Rhino, who hasn't had the same kind of voice as Ayla has had for Team Liquid over the past couple of years, or, you know, the past couple of seasons, Team Liquid are playing as though they had him on their team again.
Well, I will say, kind of look at how things have also really worked for Team Liquid. Last week with Ayla, and it wasn't their best showing. It was kind of surprising to see. Rhino, this is why I wanted to highlight him and how much he's grown in this year. Even if he hasn't been the voice that Ayla's been able to provide, and sure, you can make the argument that Ayla having to split his attention between the LCS and Academy, that's a very difficult position to be in. You still see that Team Liquid look really comfortable with Rhino, here to buff up Yon on this Zeri, and then going for the more tanky build. Look at how little damage Breezy is doing on Lux, one of these champions he's been doing so well
Why
with.
just triple a package? What? What? Triple?
I don't know. Oh, okay. Not sure either, but it might work here with Bradley a little bit caught out, but Rosethorn just doesn't have the damage at the moment. Going to be gobbled up to keep him alive, but look at Yon. Look at the damage on the other side. Trying to chase down, going to be able to zap Prismal. The flash in, the kill for Harry. Triple going to be the next target with Yon going over the wall. Breezy can't do much to escape from Zeri, and the rest of the team is falling. CLG cleanly wiped by Team Liquid.
CLG trying to make a Hail Mary play before the dragon even spawns, but Team Liquid saying no. Dokla wasn't around whatsoever, and Team Liquid instantly collapse on the play, and it's going to be putting them in. I said it was uncomfortable for CLG before. Now Team Liquid are firmly winning. Not only are they going to be able to pick up this Baron, not only are they going to be in time to go to the dragon, they are doing so with such a massive gold lead all at the same time. Dokla, I don't even think he can safely come over here, because all he will do will slightly delay things.
And Dokla wasn't a part of that fight. That's why we were highlighting this Gwen to begin with. They really need their powerful tool to join these fights. So now they lost the fight or died. The Baron's been secured by Team Liquid. Even if they're getting chased down by Dokla, he still can't do enough without his team.
Dokla trying to slow down some of these recalls. He gets Rhino.
Rhino, blast cones, dodges away from Dokla, who also goes over the wall. He might have to give up his life, which might be a fair trade. Oh, the Abyssal Voyage barely keeps Rhino alive.
Great stuff coming out from Team Liquid. The fact that Dokla is still over there isn't the worst thing for CLG. He still has a teleport available while Rhino has to run over, but Team Liquid firmly in control of the river already. They're pulling the dragon out, and look at where Triple's going. He's just not there. This looked only a steal opportunity potentially for Rosethorn, but the shock blast missing. They know he's here.
Thing, waiting it out. Going over the wall. Here's Harry. Getting that distraction tool that he can utilize. That's a lot of damage onto Rosethorn. A bit late on Final Spark, but Rosethorn getting chased down. Had to smite the Crux to survive with Aggressive Strike as well. Make sure there's not going to be that damage. He jumps onto Harry, but it's going to be a trade of 1-for-1. The kill going over to Breezy.
Great stuff coming through from Team Liquid. Even though Harry goes down, the conceptualization is fantastic. You just need to go and make sure that Rosethorn has no opportunities to steal, because that's basically their main way to get back. And the Infernal is coming out for CLG. They would like it, but it doesn't really do anything other than stop the soul going out to the other team. So the fact that Harry willing to give up a shutdown for the Infernal Soul, great stuff for Team Liquid. Now the only thing they need to show us is that they can cleanly close out this game. There are still pick tools on CLG. CLG still scales really, really well. And Team Liquid, we know that they've typically been good at choking out the enemy team. I want to see the Team Liquid of old come back.
And an issue for CLG is, even though they scale, as you said, Josh, so does Team Liquid.
True.
They are scaling well. Look at that little bit of poke that came in from Bradley. Bradley had a lot of attention and struggled in the lane against Dokla, but now as 1-1-3 has gotten his 2 items completed, it's going to be hard for anybody but Dokla to match him in the side lane.
Yeah, just the damage that he is able to put out means that it's difficult for Corki to do anything, with Corki only on 1 and 2 halves of items. But the rest of the map is also in a spot where they can try and make something happen. Breezy, a lot of pressure is currently being put onto him to find some of these bindings, but Triple, I mean, he gets 3-shot right now by Bradley. And every time they go into lane, he has to be very careful. And Yon, I don't think that Dokla and Rosethorn can really kill him, right? I think it has to be a binding.
Well, the thing is, look at the build. This is why I talked about it before. We've seen some different Zeri builds that people have been experimenting on, but this is the one I've seen really be the most interesting and the one I like, which doesn't, maybe that doesn't bode the most for it, but at the same time, you can see how difficult it is. While Zeri can still pump out incredible amounts of damage.
Yeah, you are so tanky. You have a lot of resist, you have a lot of HP, and Romeo hustling with Dokla.
Dokla needs to be here, but Dokla now has to be careful. It was a 1v5 fight. Barely limps away, dodges away from the shock blast to survive, but that left Rosethorn in the backline for Harry to be able to take out.
Yon looking. for an opportunity to dive over the wall, but there's nothing left for him to do. Instead, just going to be moving forward, and with all the members of Team Liquid still alive, they can look for opportunities to take things. Rhino once again saving one of the members of Team Liquid from the rest of that fight. And now as they back away, the only thing that they really have left to do is actually crack open the base. Baron's going to be spawning in about 2 minutes. Elder Dragon going to be spawning in about 3 minutes. And with a 9,000 gold lead already built up for Team Liquid, it is so difficult for CLG to try and find any place.
Team Liquid are playing this game so immaculately. It's the slow pace that you had talked about from last year. What we've been used to seeing from Team Liquid back here in 2022. They've got 3 items on their carriers, Harry and Yon. 3 items completed with the Void Staff, with Dend for Yon as well to make sure he's not going to be taken out by Dokla or Triple. Plus, you can have this right here, where Harry feels powerful enough to jump on Dokla, who should be the most powerful member of CLG, but he just can't even 1v1 at LeBlanc.
There you go. Harry stepping up once again, taking down Dokla. The one hope, kind of like you were saying, it's his first death of the game. And now, with no Dokla, no real frontline to speak of, Team Liquid going to be moving in and taking down the last turret outside the base. And Yon trying to chase them down, too. He does so much damage if he's able to 6 you.
This Zeri, I said people have talked about how Zeri, even with nearly getting gutted, is still damn powerful. It was not nearly enough to actually make her anywhere close to reasonable.
Reasonable. Well, we'll see how reasonable Yon is for the rest of this game. Oh, he gets binded.
And then he gets gobbled up.
Oh, it's so hard for CLG, right? They find the bind. Unfortunately, there's nothing that they can do to follow it up. So as long as Team Liquid do not give opportunities for CLG to actually go for these siege situations where Yon puts himself at risk, it's very, very easy. So I love the fact that Team Liquid consistently moving across the map, opening things up, and making sure that they're never in a spot where too many members of CLG can group up in an effective way. And we kind of go back to one of the criticisms I always have of competitive teams when they don't draft primary engage. How do you get fights started? Right? How do you actually do anything? It is on Breezy, who we highlighted earlier in the day, but now,
Harry, wow! All right, Josh, you wanted my players to stand out at the beginning of the day. Harry is standing out.
Harry is looking fantastic this game. His second solo kill onto Dokla, and CLG now in panic mode. They're trying to find a way. They're trying to find a fight before the Elder Dragon spawns, but they are in the wrong side of the map. And Team Liquid, they're going to be starting up this Baron, and there's nothing that CLG can really do. Roastorn doesn't have a smite even at this point. I guess it's going to be coming up soon, but by the time he gets here, the Baron will already be gone. So CLG, they're on their last legs. And the thing that Team Liquid can do is they don't even have to play for the Elder Dragon. They aren't necessarily worried about it. They can threaten to end the game while CLG does it, because Elder Dragon takes forever to do.
And here's... I don't know the TP there from Bradley, but I think it's just to get in position to escort these minions quickly into the base of CLG. While everyone might be up, Rosethorn hasn't recalled. So this is still a disadvantageous fight for CLG with the first inhibitor falling in this top lane.
Yeah, and now they move in the mid lane. This is why Bradley TP'd mid, to make sure that they can get multiple waves coming in at the same time. So Team Liquid now with 1 point of pressure in the top side. Look at where Rosethorn is. He's over by the Elder Dragon. Is he just going to try and do... Roadstar, you take like 2 minutes to do this by yourself, dude.
I was about to say, you're only level 13. You got 1 item completed. Yeah. You don't even have your secondary item to actually feel a little bit more powerful to do anything to it.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of pings going out from Team Liquid. I wonder if they know that Roadstar was doing it based on the animations on how it was moving around. He is going to get his way out. Yeah, they knew he was around. They knew he was somewhere. They just didn't know quite where, because they also haven't seen him in quite a long time. So now Triple.
Triple with the package, he goes for it, but that was a lot of damage from Harry. Even if he had an ace in the hole in the back line to try to take him out, it's going to be Dokla's turn to dive into all 5 members. Final Spark barely does any damage to Rhino. Pops his shield for the thick skin. They've got the Heartbreak kill for Armeo. They're turning this completely. This is the final fight Team Liquid need to end this game. Rampage for Harry, looking for more. The flash, they got the kill onto 1, but does it really matter when everyone else on the side of CLG is dead? Triple and Breezy chased back into the base. Shock Blast from Bradley does so much damage, and boom! He jumps on him with the hammer for him. Triple has to use Valkyrie away, but he is going to be dead. They can chase chase him down, shut down for one, but again, doesn't matter. This is Team Liquid's game.
Team Liquid come through. They take down CLG in dominant fashion, and 3 members on Team Liquid end the game deathless. I was asking for Harry to step up this game. He had the early game lead, the small CS lead that we consistently see him get, and typically hasn't necessarily been doing anything with it, but this game, he pops off. Magical. He looks so good. He's constantly in the right place at the right time. And of course, he wouldn't be able to do any of this if Armeo wasn't constantly creating space for him during the early game, constantly preventing Rostarn from having any kind of impact. And CLG, with this longer scaling style, is not finding their success.
No, and we even looked towards the bot lane with Yana and Rhino. It looked on paper like that should be a really difficult lane. They have very little range to be able to combat against a Caitlyn Lux, and we were expecting to see Breezy move around the map. But Yana and Rhino did a great job of making sure that wasn't the case. They were actually the ones fighting back, making sure to keep Breezy in the bot lane, so he couldn't roam around and try to impact other lanes of the map.
Yeah, so now we got to look at and figure out, right? We saw the picture of Spawn and Jubes hanging out earlier, the 2 coaches of these teams. What is Jubes going to be doing, and what are the conversations going to be like if Team Liquid take down CLG 2-0 today? I wasn't expecting that to be a real possibility at this start, but now I'm starting to see, like, Team Liquid, they figured something out today. Don't know what it was exactly that brought them back into form, but if this is the way they're going to be playing for the rest of the season, they can rapidly climb the standings.
And that's what I was going to say. It's not even about how they've been able to play today. It's the growth just in 1 week, from last week to this week. Last week, even if they were able to have one series go 1-1, it was still a 0-2 day the previous day. So now seeing this growth, we have to see them be consistent about this. We're going to toss it to a break. When we come back, we'll have our beautiful host of Mazel for our halftime show. Make sure you stay tuned.